Ron DeSantis is the Republican candidate for governor of Florida. He's a guy who's styled himself after Donald Trump. In fact, he released an ad where his kids are like using the toy blocks to build Trump's wall. And they're like, tee, wouldn't this be great to have the wall? And yeah, he's just an all-around loathsome dude. He was a Tea Party activist. In fact, I think he was an active participant or an administrator or something for a Tea Party Facebook page. So he could be a true Kool-Aid drinking Republican. He really could be the type of candidate who would be lock, stock, and barrel with Donald Trump every step of the way. Well, he is now running against, in the general election for the Florida governor, he's running against a guy named Andrew Gilliam. Now, here are these two gentlemen right here. As you can see, DeSantis is white, Gilliam is black. That's pretty relevant to this next video that you're about to see. Listen to the wording in what DeSantis says here about this election with Gilliam, and then I have a lot to say about it.
Well, look, I mean, Florida elections are always competitive, and this is a guy who, although he's much too liberal for Florida, I think he's got huge problems with how he's governed Tallahassee. He is an articulate spokesman for those far left views, and he's a charismatic candidate. And I watched those Democrat debates. None of that was my cup of tea, but I mean, he performed better than the other people there. So we've got to work hard to make sure that we continue Florida going in a good direction. Let's build off the success we've had on Governor Scott. The last thing we need to do is to monkey this up by trying to embrace a socialist agenda with huge tax increases and bankrupting the state. That is not going to work. That's not going to be good for Florida.
I think he did that on purpose. I think he basically is trolling. And I think he knew that it's what's called a dog whistle. It's you kind of mask it just enough to give yourself plausible deniability to then turn around and say, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't do that on purpose. Sure, I called him articulate, and then I went on to say Florida shouldn't monkey this up by electing Andrew Gilliam. Did I say that? So again, man, I want to be clear. I really would not cover this unless I felt like I was really certain that, I think you did that one on purpose, dude. And I think he did. I think he did that one on purpose. I think that is a dog whistle. I think that, and also you got to remember the context of who this guy is. This is the guy who, like I said, ran the ad where he takes his kids and they build with toy blocks Trump's wall in the ad, and they make it like, hee, isn't this awesome? And, if you're all in on the Trump train, there are different reasons you could be all in on the Trump train. And there was a time when I would have said, hey, maybe somebody's all in on the Trump train because of the anti-outsourcing stuff he said. He said, I'm going to keep your jobs in the country. Or maybe somebody was all in on the Trump train because they liked how he said, what are we wasting our money in Afghanistan for? I'm going to keep the money here and rebuild our infrastructure. Okay, that was a reason why somebody could have been all in on the Trump train. Well, not so much anymore because he hasn't done those things, hasn't done the right policies in that direction. But also there were other reasons why you could have been on the Trump train, and it could have been the shit he said about total and complete shutdown of Muslims coming into the U.S. That's what we need. A total and complete shutdown of Muslims. You could have supported Trump for that reason. You could have supported Trump because he said he wanted nationwide stop and frisk, which, by the way, mostly targets minorities and over 99% of the time yields no results. So you take away the Fourth Amendment protections for minorities, and it doesn't even work. Never mind the fact you shouldn't do it even if it did work, because it's a constitutional issue of protection from unreasonable search and seizure. Or you could like Trump because he said, Mexico's not sending their best. They're criminals, they're rapists. I assume some are good people. Yeah, you could like Trump for that reason. It's like, yes, Trump had the support of some working class voters in the Rust Belt, but he also had the support of fucking Richard Spencer and David Duke. And make no mistake about it, Richard Spencer and David Duke did not support Donald Trump because maybe he was going to be economically populist. They supported him because many of his policies were openly bigoted. So Do I think DeSantis is in that camp of like, oh, I support him because of the openly bigoted stuff? Yes, I do. If the main issue you put front and center is Trump's wall to keep out the scary brown people, and by the way, I'm not saying that everybody who supports a wall is bigoted, but what I'm saying is in the context of him putting that issue front and center, and then now in his first interview where he's running against Gilliam, he decides to use the phrase monkey this up. I honestly think it would be naive to think it wasn't on purpose. Hey, and maybe I'm wrong, but boy, would that be quite a coincidence if I was wrong. I mean, the chances of, and then, of course, somebody in his campaign came out and said, no, he uses that phrase all the time. Well, let me say this. Even if I'm as kind to him as possible, at the very least, he's a moron. And I say that because if you're not smart enough to know that calling somebody who could be the first black governor of Florida, saying, oh, let's not monkey this up by electing him, if you're not smart enough to know that that will be perceived as massively racist, well then you have a terrible ability to do logical deduction. That's not intelligent. That's dumb. So at worst, it was a dog whistle that was done on purpose, and indeed it's racist. At best, he's too dumb to realize that using the phrase monkey this up to refer to somebody who could be the first black governor of Florida, he's too dumb to realize that's going to be perceived as racist. Either way, DeSantis is a fucking jackass. Either way. Either he's an idiot or he's being racist and it's on purpose. I think he's being racist and it's on purpose. It looked like he was like, oh, I'm gonna drop this phrase on them, and that's a good thing. I'm sending the message to the voters I want to send a message to. So, and listen, man, I know that there are going to be plenty of people in the audience who disagree with me and think, no, Kyle, you're going too far. It was just a slip up. I really think that that's a naive thing to believe. I really think that's naive. Because, again, I don't like covering stories like this. I really don't, because I don't like language policing and stuff like that. But it's just, I think the intent was there in this instance. I think the intent was there. And again, like I said, even if it wasn't there, then he's just a dumbass for not realizing that is definitely how it's going to be perceived. So that's my take on it. Now, I will add a small little caveat at the end here that I think many of you will be critical of, but the advice I would give to Andrew Gilliam if I was his campaign manager is don't take the bait. Don't take the bait, don't take the bait, don't take the bait. Because think about what happens if he takes the bait. If Andrew Gilliam takes the bait and he responds to this and he puts it front and center, what happens is DeSantis wins because you have now deflected from the policy issues. And on the policy issues, Gilliam obliterates DeSantis 1,000 times over. Now, if you take this out of the realm of the policy issues and you move it into the realm of, I'm now going to accuse my opponent of being racist, and he's now going to accuse me of being thin-skinned and lying and whatever. Well, now you just have the standard dividing lines where you're going to have all the Republicans in Florida are going to be fired up and ready to vote for DeSantis. And they're going to hide behind the banner of, oh, it's too much political correctness today, and they're language policing this guy when he just made an honest mistake. So you're going to rile up the Republican base to support DeSantis, and then you're going to just have the Democrats, kind of double down and support Gilliam. And what you've done is you've now taken it out of the realm where you win clearly, which is on policy, and you've moved it to standard racial dividing lines, and you're going to make it so that it's a standard Democrat, Republican, down the line partisan race. Whereas I'm of the belief that the power of Andrew Gilliam's message, not only is it going to get all Democrats out to vote for him, whether they be Bernie Sanders supporting Democrats in Florida or Hillary Clinton supporting Democrats in Florida. So you're going to get all the Democrats, and then the power of his message is enough to even get independent votes and some Republican votes. Because as we discussed on the show the other day, 52% of Republicans now support Medicare for all. And that's just one example. I mean, all of these populist left policies are honestly like common sense to a lot of people, even average Joe Republican voters. Like a living wage, for example. You put that front and center, Republicans will be like, yeah, I kind of like this guy. So what I would say to Andrew Gilliam is, listen, let the media say what the media is going to say about DeSantis, and they will talk about this because they love identity politics, and they will say, oh my God, this is racist. I've already seen 1,000 segments in mainstream media over this issue. You know how many segments I've seen about Medicare for all, Andrew Gilliam's support of Medicare for all? 0. So let the media say what they're going to say about DeSantis in the wake of this, but don't take the bait. Don't take the bait and you talk about it, because when you talk about it, then they're immediately going to say, I'll tell you exactly what they're going to say. Oh, here we go. The black guy's now playing identity politics. And, why can't you talk about the issues? So what I would do if I was Gilliam, and what I would tell Gilliam if I was his strategist is, dude, yes, I think this was racist. I think it was intentional. But don't take the bait, because if you just focus on the policy issues, then you crush him in that realm 1,000 times over. If you just take it into if you just start moving it to the racial discussion, well, then you have standard dividing lines, Democrat versus Republican, and this becomes another standard election. So that would be my advice to him. I know a lot of people listening to this might not agree because it seems like such an egregious example, but let him hang himself effectively. Let DeSantis, give him enough rope, let him hang himself, and instead of, you don't have to point out what's obvious to most people on the left here, because they got it. But just focus on the policies and keep appealing to everybody. That's my point. So we'll see if he takes that advice. I don't know if he'll take that advice. I don't know if that's the direction he's going to go in. His campaign might tell him. I have a feeling whatever strategists he's got are going to tell him, oh, you're going all in on this. Because this is the type of stuff that Democratic strategists, the type of scandal that a Democratic strategist can't get enough of. So my advice is definitely unorthodox and unconventional. But I think that's the way he should go. But in terms of the substance of this, yes, I'm of the belief that what DeSantis said was on purpose. And I think that it's a naive view to think it wasn't.